hasn't it? I'm the night. Well, you heard what he said. He is the night. Apparently, he is the night. He was never the vengeance, as they call him in the Batman. Okay. Uh, don't worry, I'm not going to be inconsistent and contradict myself by saying that the movie sucked when I said it was really good in a previous video. It was definitely very good. Okay, which for me means like I give it like a B, a grade of a B. Um, but that's because it was a good suspense thriller. If you like the Zodiac Killer or Seven, movies like that, you would definitely like the movie. And if you like Batman, you'll probably like it as well when you mix those two together. But it has some things that were lacking. And Matt Reeves is already planning to do a sequel. I think he wants to do it with the Court of Owls thing, which would be dope to put that in live action. They did have a version of that on the Gotham series about 6 years ago, but it sucked, so that doesn't even count. That show was a complete abomination. It was just bad. I mean, here's how you know it was bad. Jada Pinkett starred in it. That's how you know it was bad. She played a fictional supervillain that was never in the previous comics named Fish Mooney. It was just stupid as hell. It looked like she was just playing herself, but smarter. Anyway, so yeah, Matt Reeves is planning a Batman 2 sequel, and which may have the Court of Owls in it, and it may have Mr. Freeze in it, which I hope they do Mr. Freeze, a realistic version of him, because they would probably use the retconned Mr. Freeze from Batman the Animated Series in the 90s, which showed him as a tragic uh, villain because what he was doing was trying to save his wife, who nearly died of an incurable disease. So he stuck her in a permanent cryogenic stasis until he could cure whatever had uh, afflicted her. And a series of tragic events happen, leading him to be what he is. So that storyline, well, I think won an Emmy back in the '90s for that episode because it was just that good. It was made for kids, but it was that good. Okay, the Batman animated series kicked off the DC animated universe, by the way, which is by far much better than anything that the DCEU has done, and even DC Films in total has done. By the way, the Dark Knight trilogy isn't under DC Films, so don't come at me in the comments. I mean, I love comics, don't get me wrong, but the Dark Knight trilogy wasn't part of DC Films. The what we call the Nolan verse for DC nerds like myself was a standalone thing. They tried to incorporate it originally into the DCEU, but Christopher Nolan wanted to be a standalone masterpiece, and I'm glad that he did. So in any case, Matt Reeves is going to do this Batman 2 movie, uh, perhaps, and two spinoffs. One of them is going to be a Penguin spinoff. I think this is going to be on HBO Max, and I don't recall what the other spinoff is going to be. But maybe get Batman right in the sequel before he get too carried away with all these spinoffs and other things that he wants to do with the property. Like, for instance, how about Batman actually have muscles? And I'm so tired of hearing people online saying, well, this is his origin. He's not supposed to be like the Batman we know already. People who say that never read a fucking Batman comic. Before he became Batman, he was at the peak human level of performance, which is what led him to becoming Batman. Batman is not a on the job type of training sort of situation. You'll die, okay? Um, he was already doing stuff like bench pressing a 1,000 pounds, okay, and I think squatting 2,500 pounds, something like that. Not to mention his cardio was insane and other sorts of things. Basically, he was an Olympic level athlete, But he's just a scrawny emo character in the movie. It just looks pathetic. Not to mention, we he's a ninja, right? He doesn't have to just go around knocking on doors and stuff. He does do that in the comics, and in the cartoons, he will just flat out come to your door and be like, "Hey, I'm the Batman." But this dude had no ninja skills whatsoever. Like, for all the criticism of Ben Affleck's portrayal, he was very Batman like in what he and how he fought and how he behaved outside of, murdering people. If you if you took the murderous parts away from him, not to mention the quasi fascist aspects of him, and the fact that he wasn't that smart that he could get fooled by such a simple trick from Lex Luthor, who seemed more like an evil Mark Zuckerberg. I'm sorry, a more evil version of Mark Zuckerberg. Then, as far as how he behaved and fought, he was Batman. He was the most comic like of Batman in the movies thus far, in the way he looked and fought. But this new guy, they're gonna need some improvements on him in a sequel. Like, I know he didn't want to work out during the pandemic or whatever the case may be, but Twilight Boy needs to put on some pounds. Like, he needs to hire the people that Marvel hires to train their actors to get buff for a part. Remember Chris Pratt? He wasn't buff like that in Parks and Recreation. he he got trained to look like that when he starred in Guardians of the Galaxy. They could do the same thing with with the actor in the Batman. He needs to get one of those trainers that will get him solid, and they need someone in there that does martial arts choreography and stuff like that to have some better fight scenes and ninja skills, which are fictional, as I pointed out in another video, but we know what fictional ninja skills are supposed to look like, particularly the stealth part, which is the most important aspect of it, which he clearly lacked, was stealth. Okay, he needs all of that, and he should be a polymath and a polyglot, which I didn't mention in the previous video because I thought it might be a spoiler, but I think the movie's been out long enough that I can spoil it somewhat. Okay. Not knowing how to translate Spanish, the dude is a polyglot. He speaks dozens of languages in the comics. Spanish should not be an issue for him. Like, and he's again a polymath. Like, the stuff that he was getting confused about by the Riddler was not that hard to figure out. He's literally the second smartest person in the world in DC Comics right now, under the current canon. And even before the retcon that made him the second smartest person just under Lex Luthor, he was still in the top 10 of smartest people in the world. So he should not have been baffled by the shit that was going on in that movie. But again, it was a good suspense thriller. I'm not going to knock that. It was a really good movie. Go check it out if you haven't. But I'm not going to say it's a Batman a la Batman movie, because it's not. Okay. And I hope in the sequel, like I said, I hope he actually has muscles. Or if he doesn't, if he can't get one of those trainers like they get actors in Marvel, then he needs to put on one of those Shazam suits, like the actor did in Shazam. Do that. Actually show how he's a ninja. You know, he's mastered 127 martial arts styles and he's a ninja. So maybe show that. And people talking about the movie was realistic. Really? So how realistic is it that someone walking into a line of automatic gunfire just doesn't get shot the hell down into the ground and knocked unconscious, assuming that their body armor can maintain a structural integrity while being constantly fired upon by machine guns? Yeah, that's really realistic. Okay. Like, people who say that are dumb as shit. Like, those fighting scenes were not more realistic than other comic book movies. Walking into machine gun fire and not feeling it at all, like, yeah, okay. So I'm done with that rant, but Batman 2 is coming. and some spin-offs based on the Batman movie. So I hope they do a better job with portraying Batman as Batman in the future future uses of him in in the DC films. And if they use him in DCEU again, which is a sub part of DC films now, uh, hopefully they get Ben Affleck back, or I know they are going to have my boy Michael Keaton back. I hope, you know, they keep it comic book accurate, or at least canon to the previous movies. We'll see. All right, talk to you ladies, and more savagery to come. I'm just a contrarian.